Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority.
8:07 on the Morning Majority. Brian Neiman and Mary Catherine Ham here in D.C. Brian Wilson on the road in Florida. We'll hear back from him later in the hour. I don't know if you know this, Brian Neiman, but I'm moving up in the world. I am emceeing an event Wednesday. That's right. The Susan B. Anthony List Campaign for Life Gala.
Very
and two of our great guests are on the show today. Kelly Ayotte and Senator Marco Rubio.
Wow.
And Senator Kelly Ayotte is here this morning. How are you doing, Kelly? Or Senator, excuse me.
Catherine, great to be with you and Brian.
I wanted to ask you about the primary race in Florida. You endorsed Romney in New Hampshire, and
I did.
You yourself were involved in what at times was a contentious primary in New Hampshire when you won your Senate seat. How did the healing process go after that, and how do you feel about how rough things are in Florida?
You know, I think that we always have vigorous primaries. I went through a very vigorous primary, but my closest opponent very quickly got behind me, and, we have a good relationship because we know that the principles that we share are much more important than petty fights that we have together. And I think with what's at stake in this election, with none of us, we can't stand 4 more years with Barack Obama and where that's going to take our country, that it may take a little time, but there'll be a very strong healing process in the Republican Party because of the greater good. Do you feel confident that that'll happen pretty quickly after a nomination is wrapped up here, or are we going to be, stretching this out for a couple months? I think that we will all come together because that is the one unifying factor, no matter what candidate we're supporting, is that understanding that if we have 4 more years of this president, our country is in trouble now, but we're going to be deeply, deeply in trouble. So, this primary seems to be going a lot longer than we thought, but that's okay. That's what races are for, right?
Yeah.
You see a lot of discussion on the other side, on the Democratic side, oh, this is a long race. Well, hey, listen, that's what contests are for. That's what our democratic process is about.
Now, Mitt Romney, a lot of Republicans have issues with him. They label him a moderate. Newt Gingrich is now calling him a liberal. But if he is the nominee, if he wins the general election, do you think he will govern as a moderate or as a conservative?
No, he's going to govern as a conservative. This is important to me. I certainly wouldn't have gotten in for him. I mean, look at where we are. We've got $15 trillion in debt. He knows we've got to cut back the spending. He has the experience in balancing a budget, both in the private sector and as a governor of Massachusetts. He's going to be focusing on that. In terms of the principles and pro-life, he's pro-life. He will protect life. That was a very important issue for me, and I asked him about it, and I think he's sincere. So I think we'll have a strong conservative president, which is what we need. If you think about what we need to turn our country around, we need the opposite of Barack Obama, and that's going to take conservative principles in the White House.
Now, you voted recently against the debt increase that the president requested of $1.2 trillion, which is part of the original deal made during the original deficit increase. What do you think are the next steps on the debt ceiling limit? Should that be something that we're automatically doing every once in a while? Do you think it's worth having this fight every couple of months? How is this going to play out in the future?
I think it's an incredibly important fight. I actually voted against this debt ceiling deal because I thought it was totally insufficient and an abrogation of our responsibility to start with. Plus, if you see what it's going to do to our military, I think that we played right into the Democrats' hand with it. So I think this is probably the most important discussion we can have, because if we continue increasing our credit limit without reducing spending, we're going to go the way of Greece and other European countries, and that will diminish the strength of America. So to me, this is one of the most important things we can do in Congress. We could solve this whole thing just by putting together a responsible budget, and people forget that. The House budget would have reduced spending $6 trillion over the next 10 years. We wouldn't even needed to have that fight we had in August had we just put together a responsible budget.
Well, how do you combat Democrats on the budget issue when they have been unwilling to even put forth a budget? How do you highlight that or combat it?
It's really outrageous. I'm actually the newest member of the Senate Budget Committee. I got appointed to the committee, and then it didn't meet for months because Harry Reid said it would be foolish to put together a budget. The way I've been highlighting is just, with my constituents, letting them know the facts. I also introduced legislation last year to say we should not do anything else in the Congress until we put together a budget and pass a budget, because it seems to me that is the fundamental thing we need to do to get our country on a fiscally responsible path. And, at home, I meet my constituents, they're like, you got to be kidding me. In my business, in my home, I run with a budget, I balance my budget. I can't believe you guys down there aren't doing that basic function for our country.
We're talking with Senator Kelly Ayotte from New Hampshire, a Republican. All right, but what about the Republicans? Are you guys on the same page when it comes to legislating? Because there were some fights going. There was a fight in December between Senate Democrats and Senate Republicans and House Republicans over the payroll extension. Do you feel, and a lot of people on the House side are saying they weren't on the same page with what the Senate Republicans were doing. Do you feel like moving forward, you guys are going to be working together and on the same page?
I think that's incredibly important, and I can tell you that there are many of us within the Republican conference in the Senate that are urging better coordination between the Senate Republicans and House Republicans, and I think you're going to see that in 2012, because no one wants to see what happened with that payroll issue, and obviously that wasn't good for any of us.
Well, Senator, a lot of people are talking about the women vote in the general election in 2012. It's very important, specifically suburban women. When you ran in 2010, the swing from the percentage of women that Barack Obama earned to the percentage that you earned was incredible. It was quite a feat. What do you think about the women vote in the general? Does anybody have a problem with the women vote among the candidates that you see? And are we going to be able to maintain the 2010 gains as Republicans?
Well, I think, as you know, the women vote's very important, and particularly that independent women vote, and making sure Republican women get out and strongly vote. I think that as I look across this field, the strongest candidate to appeal to women is going to be Mitt Romney. I think that whether we like it or not, some of the personal issues that the speaker has had aren't going to resonate well, particularly with independent women. And we don't need that baggage going into the election. Obviously I'm in for Mitt Romney, so take it from whence it comes. But I think that's something we really need to consider, because that's a key electorate we need to win this presidency.
Senator Ayotte, good to have you on. Thanks very much. We appreciate it.